Welcome to Charts Today. It is Tuesday, the 21st of July, and we are starting by looking at SpaceX. How low can SpaceX go? Certainly not reaching for Mars at the moment. And we're seeing here downside targets met and exceeded. Remembering that's bearish confirmation. This is the 60-minute chart. And we can see here a new downside target to $103. The IPO price was $135. The launch price was $150. So everyone, bar the people who've shorted it, are underwater. So really not a good looking chart. And if we look at the daily candles, you can see just from the daily candle that we closed at the bottom of that range yesterday. So it's really quite interesting. At 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 downside candles in a row. So really not a great picture. We'll come back and look at tech stocks in a minute. The dollar, not much change here, of course. Sterling, interesting with the new Prime Minister coming in yesterday. And again, no big changes there. If we look at the short-term chart, there is a downside target, but realistically, we are in a bit of a range as showing up in that medium-term chart. Bitcoin up nearly 1% this morning, but not enough really to change the picture. The short-term chart, we do have upside targets, but those counter trend. Be brave to take a move there. The Nasdaq is holding this 28,400 level. Notice yesterday we spiked to 28,230. That's kind of where we've been before, but the pattern is a bearish one, like a descending triangle. We are seeing the futures up this morning. We've had a couple of pretty bad days for tech stocks, so we are seeing the future up 1.3%, so some respite there. The UK market is down 1/3% this morning, so not even a new Prime Minister is enough to drive that higher, and we're seeing the DAX in Germany actually up 1/3%, but again, the picture is pretty mixed when we look at the chart. We are very much in a sideways range. Japan recovers 2.4%, actually had that big fall last week, and that's recovering quite a bit of that ground. If we look at the longer term chart, it is a bullish trend based on that weaker yen. That's what's really driving that. Looking at the Chinese market, that has been looking pretty poor short term, and we can see we had a bit of a bounce at that key level yesterday, but we do have downside targets. And the Sensex also just struggling in the recovery, remembering on the daily chart we need to break 80,000 really for that to be bullish. The Aussie market sideways, waiting for direction. We look at the short-term chart, similarly waiting for direction. Brent crude is down this morning by just a little bit, and in fact if we look at the 60-minute chart, we can see that resistance at around $91 on Brent crude. It's 85 on WTI. I put my report out to clients this morning, and we are neutral for today. Carbon has broken out. Power still looking quite strong. So I cover energy markets for our corporate clients first thing in the morning. Looking at some of the other products, cocoa, we have seen just a little bit of a hitting the buffers there. Sugar, that's actually also just struggling at that resistance level. The daily chart's still looking pretty bearish. Each time we have this move, it tends to give us another downside target. So we've just got to be cautious there on sugar. And if we look at coffee, that's up 2% this morning, so that's looking quite strong. Gold, there does seem to be quite a lot of support around this 4,000. Just dipped below at 3,975. I've heard the Chinese are buying record volumes of gold at these levels. We've got a target to 41,150. We've got to break 4,200. That's going to be the key, and then we could see gold running again. So that's the short-term picture. You can see that we're finding support roughly where that target is, but we are still in a bearish trend below the cloud. The long-term chart, we are finding support on the cloud, so really quite key. We're not surprised to see downside targets not met in an uptrend. Silver is up 4%, putting it back in that $57, $63 range. So again, bounced at about 55. You can see there really quite strong support at 55. A high, then a higher low, and then a higher high. Dow theory suggests that we are in a new short-term uptrend there for silver. Keep an eye out for the targets, even watch the 1 minutes. We're seeing bond markets being fairly sedate. The US bond market fell back yesterday, and of course the semiconductor index, which we talked about yesterday, still looking pretty sick on the short-term chart with lots of downside targets there. And if we look at the daily chart, we can see even though we've got a big upside target, we have got these multiple downside targets kicking in. It does suggest that chip stocks have had their run, having doubled in a few months. SpaceX we've talked about. And of course, if you're trading SpaceX, you could go to a 1 minute chart and press the T key and you'll have all the targets there. And you can see even on the 1 minute at the close yesterday, that run down, a little recovery, and then that's activated that downside target. So if you like, that's targets for today. But sentiment is changing pretty quick there. And so that's going to be pretty key to watch. Apple, just holding above their break to a new high. And don't be surprised to see that sort of level around 315, 317 becoming a support level before we bounce and go even higher. That's a key thing to watch. Amazon up, Alphabet up 1.5%, and Microsoft even performing better, but still below the cloud there. Nvidia just struggling a little bit, and Tesla seems to be going the way of SpaceX in terms of sentiment. You can see there on the short-term chart, we have got downside targets, and that key resistance level at around 370 is really quite important now. Looking at the Dow list, you can see yesterday only a handful of stocks were bullish. We do have the future suggesting a higher open today. Microsoft was the best performing stock. And we have just seen some of these other stocks giving up a bit. The Nasdaq, we look here again, we had some top performers, some of the chips were coming back. We look at the other end of the SpaceX and Tesla were among the second and third worst performing stocks, so that's quite key. And then the UK market this morning, we are seeing really probably around 10 or 12 stocks that are up. Everything else is down. And we can see BAE Systems, that's probably leapt on the fact that the ex-defence minister is now the chancellor, meaning that defence spending is going to be funded in the UK. That's having an effect. But if we look at the downside, we've got Kingfisher down, even though that chart looks a little bit better, they are down. But and housebuilders, Barclays, Bearish, etc. So we are seeing quite a mixed picture. The key thing is that these drivers of tech, do think this SpaceX situation is pretty poor sentiment for the market. If an IPO is underwater so quickly, so that is going to be a little bit of a sentiment measure that we have to consider in the coming weeks and days. I am off for the next 2 weeks. I'm traveling, I'm away. So there will be no charts today for the next 2 weeks. If I can get one recorded while I'm away, I'll do my best. But until a couple of weeks' time, have a great summer. Keep an eye on those targets and do watch the trends as well. Until then, bye for now.